Carroll, bringing it forward. Thompson's making the run. Carroll hangs on to it though. Still Davy Carroll. Could go all the way here. Oh, what a goal!
Hello, I'm Phil Catchpole and welcome to episode 28 of Ringing the Blues. On this week's show, to complete a hat-trick of consecutive striker interviews, I caught up with Chairboys legend Keith Scott. But first, the Football Manager Cup. It's a bit like giving a starving dog a rubber bone, but it's all we have.
Andy Collins,
BBC Three Counties Radio.
With the current suspension of football, fans have had to go to extreme measures for an alternative sporting fix. The computer game Football Manager has organised a tournament where the clubs battle online, with fans and players representing their clubs. The tournament, which is being run in partnership with the EFL and the mental health charity Mind, kicked off last week. And there's a Three Counties derby in the second round. Tonight at 8 p.m, MK Dons take on Wycombe Wanderers. We are joined on the line now by the virtual managers, Wycombe fan Craig Anderson and MK Dons player George Williams. Good morning to you, Craig, first of all.
Good morning, Andy.
Hi, mate. How is it then, managing your beloved Chairboys?
It's a bit surreal, but obviously a lot of fun to be able to lead them out onto the virtual pitch. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, it's great.
How did you get chosen? Was it a grueling interview process?
It was just Twitter. They threw something up on Twitter, and you had to state your claim, and quite a lot of people did, and I was the lucky one that managed to state my claim the best.
Well, listen, I'm going to bring George in. George, you actually play for MK Dons in real life. How accurate is Football Manager?
Morning, mate. Yeah, I haven't actually looked at the Dons players just yet. I usually start in the lower leagues when I go on Football Manager. That'll be a test for me, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting going.
I take it you'll be playing yourself up front and making yourself the star man, yeah?
No doubt, yeah. I'll be on penalties, corners, free kicks, I think, trying to get some goals.
What happens if you don't perform? You're not going to sub yourself off, are you?
I don't think there's anything I can do to be subbed off, to be honest. I think I'll be on for the whole game, no matter what happens.
Craig, every football fan has questioned managers' decisions, from the stands. We've all done it. Do you feel the pressure now?
A little bit. It's quite weird. I was on a live chat last Wednesday after my Crew game in the first round, and there was a few of the Wycombe lads that I actually didn't pick. And got a bit of stick from a couple of them for putting them on the bench, and a little bit on Twitter. So I could appreciate it a little bit more. It's a bit surreal, but yeah, I can appreciate how the Monday to Friday stress of being a football manager is in real life.
I mean, George, of course, when you're on the pitch, you feel the pressure. Of course you do. But is there more pressure now being the virtual manager of the team?
I think there is, especially because a few lads have messaged me wondering why they didn't get the job. Carlton Morris was very bitter about it. A couple other lads. But, my CV on Football Manager spoke for itself. I don't think they even got a look in, to be honest. So it's I feel the pressure in that sense. So I've got to perform.
Are you also now starting to think, I don't know what the boss is going on about? This is too easy. It's so easy being a manager.
Well, I don't know. We got a tough game tonight under the lights. Wycombe, they're probably heavy favourites for this game, how they're performing in the league and whatnot. So it's going to be tough.
I love that already. You're using management talk. I love it. Love it. Obviously, you got all your tactics all sorted out, Craig. Can you reveal anything for us tonight?
No, I mean, if there's anything I've learned from watching football since a young age, you never give anything away until.
Well, look, we got a bit of a surprise for you lads, because you might want some tips in your new careers as a manager. So let's go to one of the actual bosses who's listening in. It's Wycombe's Gareth Ainsworth. Good morning to you, Gareth.
Morning. How's it going?
I'm fine and dandy, sir. Any advice for Craig ahead of the big game?
I'm just really happy, just chilling here with the pressures on somebody else totally this day. So now I'm hoping that George is getting a little bit too cocky and a little bit the emotion that he's showing is great, but I'm hoping that Craig's calm persona can get us through tonight. But it's great. It's great to hear them both getting involved and both great guys.
Have you missed football, Gareth? I mean, have you done anything to keep your eye in?
Yeah, totally. It is everything to me and my life, and as you've just been saying, I think Craig mentioned Monday to Friday. I wish it was Monday to Friday. It's Monday back round to Monday, believe me. So it's 24/7 days a week. But at the moment, it's all about the players now, keeping them mentally as well as physically in the right shape for potentially what could happen. But no, it's great to be watching this with a keen eye tonight, and I'm hoping the Bucks derby can come our way again.
I mean, is it worrying for you as a manager in real life, worrying what the players are up to? I mean, do you worry that maybe hitting the biscuit barrel a bit too much?
You always worry, you always worry no matter what about your players, what they're up to, no matter if they're in every day or they're not. My one concern is the lack of gym equipment and things that they've got at the moment. It's like a summer break, this, and we're going to treat it like a summer break. But in the summer breaks, the boys have access to gyms where they keep doing their prehab, rehab, weights and resistance work. They can do plenty of running at the moment, but there's so much more comes into football, and I'm just a bit concerned that we don't get long enough when we get back to get them prepared for the games. So this is something that the EFL must get right, and it's important for the welfare of the players. But
Gareth, I know a few managers and I speak to them a lot, and they say, and let's be honest, that players sometimes can be a little bit lazy if you're not there screaming and shouting at them. George, have you been training hard? Have you been eating the crisps from the cupboard?
No, to be fair, we've been given a really good programme to follow. It's been quite tough and quite strict, so we've got to log all our sessions and all our food diary and whatnot. So we're under quite strict regime, so it's keeping us fit and healthy.
Gareth, if it was one win each in the real life league this season, will tonight's game decide the bragging rights?
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? I hear that George is already using the psychology of we should win this game. And these Wycombe Wanderers, we're never the favourites. Come on, we're always the underdog.
Well, the thing is, the thing is, Gareth, that George has been saying he doesn't realise, that this manager's lark's dead easy. Well, George, we've got your boss, Russell, is on the line. Good morning to you, my friend.
Morning, gents. How are we?
I'm fine and dandy. So, Russell Martin, you are the real life manager. George thinks you have it quite easy as managers. Anything you want to say to me?
Well, I wouldn't say that, especially with people like George around, keeping them on the toes. But I'm hoping he wins tonight, of course. But there's one tactic that I think will guarantee that he's just got to play me. I think I'm still a player in the game, so he's got to put me in the side and we'll be all right.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if I can get signed up now. Then Russell, you're going to play.
You're still registered, guys.
Yeah, Craig, get me on that team. I've got me man to man on Russell tonight.
Okay, George, this is your first role as manager, George. Has Russell made the team, or are you going to drop him?
I think Football Manager has taken it out of my hands. I've got a feeling he's now been promoted to manager there. I'm not sure he's on there.
He never played me anyway. I used to see him on the bus. He took me out straight away every single time.
Brilliant. Russell, if George doesn't win, will there be extra training here?
Well, to be fair, he's trained. He's probably one of the, in terms of the programme they've been given, he's probably one that trains the hardest anyway. So we'll have to chuck it. He loves it though. We'll have to chuck him a few extra sessions, but he'll enjoy it. So we'll give him a week off after this.
And I have to ask you the same question I asked Gareth. I mean, you're obviously missing football. How are you keeping your eye in?
Just a bit of everything, really. Watching players, watching our games. I've got 3 young kids, so I'm homeschooling as well, which is keeping me busy.
Wow.
But yeah, just trying to stay in contact with the guys with various different bits. And but I think we're all missing it now, and we'd like to get back at some point soon.
Russell, I mean, Football Manager, homeschooling, and also you've just opened a restaurant all before this, didn't you? The stress levels must be going for the roof.
Terrible timing, really, wasn't it? So, about 4 days before lockdown kicked in, we opened because we were so far advanced with all our the staff and everything like that, and the refurbishment of the place. So we just thought we'd give it a go and see how it went, and then obviously this kicked in. So hopefully we'll be okay after all this. Or we'll have to see what happens, but.
Well. Get through this, you can get through anything. Listen, we've got to wrap it up, but what I would love, just if I may, Gareth, a final little team talk to Craig before tonight's big game. What would you like to say?
Yeah, Craig, just it's another game. Don't play the occasion. Keep you calm and make your decisions based on evidence that's put in front of you. No emotion tonight.
And Russell, I
appreciate it.
And Russell, I really do think George would appreciate a bit of teacup throwing here. Unleash.
Yeah, Georgie, don't listen to Gaz. It's not a game. This is everything, mate. All in one game. Complete emotion. Go and destroy him.
Go and destroy him. Love it. Gareth, Ainsworth, Russell, Martin, thank you so much indeed, gentlemen. And thank you very much for joining us. And George and Craig, good luck tonight, lads.
Nice. All the best, Craig. You too, George. All the best.
Brilliant.
Testing, 1 2 1 2. Am I on the air? Thank you. Okay, here we go. Hola mis amigos, we are ringing the blues from Mexico City. Mi nombre es Uri, and here are the results for League One. No, wait a moment, this is not League One. This is the Football Manager Cup Round 2. MK Dons 0. Wycombe Wanderers 3. Oh, that makes me so happy for the weekend. Thank you very much, Wycombe Wanderers. And now, for Chairboys Spanish, this is the phrase. We are Wycombe Wanderers. We are box number 1. You know it's true. Light, dark, and blue. Where to start? It is such a long phrase, my amigo Phil. Okay, number 1. You know how to say that in Spanish? Number 1. Número uno. Okay, blue. How to say blue in Spanish? You should know that by this moment. Blue, azul. So, light, luz, or light, ligero. Luz is like light, like photons, and light, it is like a feather, ligero. Dark, oscuro, So, here we go. We are Wycombe Wanderers. Somos los Wycombe Wanderers. We are box number 1. Somos los número uno de Buck. I don't know who Buck is, sorry. You know it's true. Sabes que es verdad. Light and dark blue. Azul ligero y azul oscuro. Vamos todo de lleno. Here we go again. Somos Wycombe Wanderers. Somos los número uno de box. Sabes que es verdad. Azul, ligero y oscuro. Hey, we did it, right? It's not that difficult. Learning Spanish with the Chairboys. Mi nombre es Uri. I'm back to the Ringing the Blues headquarters studios in England with mi amigo Phil Catchpole. Stay safe. Stay at home. Quédate en casa. Adiós.
The Bucks derby, well, it was a one-way affair really. Wycombe Wanderers winning 3-0 to go into the third round of the Football Manager Cup. The dream start really. The man with an arthritic hip, Darius Charles, opened the scoring on the 2nd minute, and then Fred Onyedinma in the second half doubled Wycombe's lead with his 3rd goal in the tournament, his 3rd in 2 games, and then former ex-MK Dons loanee, the man that fired the MK Dons into League One, rubbed salt into the wounds with an injury time winner to make it convincing from Wycombe. 3-0 was the score. But the stats bear it out as well. Wycombe dominated with shots on target, possession as well, and it was a deserved victory. Gareth Ainsworth said in the build-up, Bucks is ours if they win this one. And manager Craig Anderson steered Wycombe through to a famous victory, and Craig joins us now. Craig, a brilliant result for you in what was a tricky fixture looking ahead into the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Regardless of current league positions in real life and stuff like that, it all goes out the window in derbies like this. So we knew what we had to do. We knew our goal. We knew our tactics, and it was just all about stopping them and making our tactics as more positive as possible. Now,
there's some big teams left in this tournament, and the games are obviously going to get tougher. But you've got momentum now and a real belief. I think 2 away wins, 2 tough away wins on the bounce. You must not fear anyone now in this tournament.
I mean, that's right, really. I mean, I think I mentioned to you last week, to win a tournament like this, you're going to have to play the big teams. And, I wouldn't have minded if I played a big team in that last game. And when I mean big team, I mean like a championship team. Looking at the draws for the games that have just happened, and the games are a few more to come. You know, it looks like we're almost definitely going to get a championship team, and you know, my preparation's already started. You know, I've you know, in regards to the MK game, I had a couple of friends in Mitchell and Kieran I played, and in regards to a big championship team, I've already had a friend of mine, Martin, who I've played a couple of times online to prepare for this. So I'm fully prepared for any big championship team that we could potentially get drawn against in round 3.
Going back to the MK game, I mean, they started off with 3 at the back, as they have done in real life for most of this season as well, but you've been sticking with the famous 4-3-3, the Gareth Ainsworth formation. Do you think it's better to play to your team's strengths or adapt really to try and counter your opponents?
I think it's important to understand and acknowledge what the other team are doing, but I absolutely think that you should stick to your strengths and to what you're good at. And I think that's, you know, the proof is in the pudding. In the last 2 games, we've stuck to what we know, and you know, we've come out scoring 5 goals, only conceding 1 goal. So I mean, you know, sticking to what we know is definitely the way we're going to continue with this tournament. In the build-up to the game, we heard from Gareth Ainsworth and Russell Martin. Russell, obviously a former Chairboy as well, but now the manager at MK Dons. There's a sweet personal story to this win as well, isn't there, Craig? It is. It's very unique. Last summer on the pitch at Adams Park, an old Chairboy, Sergio Torres, had a film that came out. And as part of that day, any fan could come along, Wycombe fan, and played a team full of ex-Wycombe players. And I played in that game for the fans, and I actually was in goal for the fans team. And Russell Martin, who played on the other team. And just before the match, we ended up doing a little quick penalty shootout. And I think you were interviewing them as they took the penalties. And I was in goal for Russell Martin's penalty, and he scored against me. So yesterday, on the Wednesday when I played the game, I was, you know, a little bit extra for myself to kind of get one over on Russell Martin's virtual MK Dons after he scored against me last summer. So yeah, full circle, very strange and unique story, but yeah, full circle for sure. Well, he had to bide your time, but he made him pay when it counted.
Roberto Perrone.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
With football. We've been talking football with the BBC's chief football writer Phil McNulty. We've just heard about the Premier League hopes of returning to action in June. But what about the Football League? The Championship plus Leagues 1 and 2 are also in a state of limbo since football was suspended in March. Last night, an alleged leaked voice message from a professional footballer spread quickly around social media, which contains supposed details of what may happen in the EFL. Reporter Phil Catchpole joined. Why did everyone call Phil this afternoon? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Roberto.
What was in this message?
Well, it's believed that the voice on the message was Alex Rodman, who's the Professional Footballers Association delegate for Bristol Rovers. And he was talking to teammates after a call with clubs, the EFL and the PFA. Bristol Rovers are investigating that leak, but the main contents of the message included things saying that it's unlikely that crowds will be allowed into stadia to watch games until January 2021. If the season can't resume, then league placings would be decided on sporting merit, which would mean points per game. 3 teams would then be promoted from each EFL division, but with no relegations, leading to a 23-team Premier League for 2021, and then extra relegation spots across the divisions in future seasons to balance the numbers back out. I mean, we understand that no final decisions were made during Wednesday's call between the clubs, the EFL and the PFA representatives, and several ideas were discussed.
What could that mean, Phil, for the EFL teams in the 3 counties?
Well, from a league standing position, it could possibly be good news for the teams in the 3 counties. Luton Town, who are fighting relegation in the Championship, would not have to worry about that because there's going to be no relegation. Yeah. Wycombe Wanderers, on a points per game basis, would move up to 3rd in the table, and if these things are to be believed, could perhaps go into the Championship and be promoted for the first time in their history to the 2nd level. MK Dons were safe in League 1 and would remain so, but Stevenage were fighting for their Football League life at the bottom of League 2, and if there's going to be no relegations in these divisions, then potentially league standings, it's good news for the 3 counties clubs. However, no crowds until January, financially, that would concern the chairman of those clubs.
Concern is one word. I mean, yeah, it would be horrific.
It's just I mean, financially, it's the lifeblood of these teams. The TV money is nowhere near the riches of the top division, the Premier League. And also, it's the soul of football. It's very strange to even consider playing games without crowds there. They play such a big part in these fixtures.
The reality is we have to think about the people who have been fighting coronavirus, who are dying from this. Absolutely paramount, of course. But the game of football, the sport element, and the fact that people can go, the money element because they keep the clubs going, but the fans going on a Saturday midweek it's this social element, the mental health element of being involved in something, to have it deprived from us until next year, be horrible.
Yeah, it's a daunting prospect for many, and it's not just football. We're talking theatre, music, everything. It's our outlets, our releases that have been denied at this time. But as you say, health is paramount, and that's what the Football League will continue to push through. Their aim is to conclude the season by playing these games out, if possible. As time goes by, that will become more and more unlikely.
Phil, thank you. Our reporter Phil Catchpole with the latest on what may happen to the EFL teams in the three.
Right. Our next guest needs no introduction to Wycombe fans. A striker from the non-league days into the league as well. Went on to play in the Premier League. Came back to Wycombe. Of course, it's Mr. Keith Scott. And we don't just do this for everyone, Scotty, but we've got your theme tune in the background. Can you hear it?
I can, mate, yeah.
Keithy, Scott. How are you, mate?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very good indeed, missing the football, but like we've said many times, it does give us the chance to go and revisit the glory days, and there's none more glorious, Scotty, than that conference team under Martin O'Neill, of which you were the figurehead. It does seem like a long time ago now, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I think I was one of the figureheads. I wouldn't say I was the figurehead, but yeah. Well, when you consider, we won the league in '93, so what are we, 27 years ago?
Yeah, when you put it like that, it is a long time, isn't it?
How old was you then?
I was at school. I mean, I'm 41 now, so I was 13, 14 around that time. Yeah, great times to be a Wycombe fan. I started going regularly, sort of 91, 92 era, and it just felt like we were going to win every week, especially at home. And then most season we'd go to Wembley and win as well. I mean, obviously football wasn't like that. I learned a harsh lesson after Martin left, but it was great times. Yeah,
it was, and it's really weird that you said that you always felt we was going to win, because so did we, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but if you take it that I sort of joined in '91, the first year we won the trophy, and then obviously we finished fourth, and the gaffer was still sort of building that team. There was still a few missing pieces. And then obviously the following season, we know what happened on the following season where we finished runners-up. But then when we came into the year that we won it, the focus from actually losing the championship the year before on goal difference to actually winning it the following season, as soon as we came back pre-season, the focus was on winning the championship. It wasn't, you get clubs who we don't talk about, where we want to finish in the league. We talked about it. And it was talked about from day one that our only objective was to win the championship. So we were focused from the first day of pre-season. But we were, again, I don't want this to sound arrogant, but we were that good. We always knew, once we scored first against any team, it'd be interesting to know what the stats were, but I bet we didn't lose many games from scoring first, and we just had that belief that we would win every game, and ultimately, over the course of the season, we virtually did.
I guess the biggest barrier or the biggest issue to deal with back then was having come so close the season before, mentally picking yourselves up again. How did Martin do that?
Well, do you know what? It's really strange, really, because at the end of the day, he basically said, "There's nothing you can do about it." And you couldn't, if you take away from all of the emotion of finishing runners-up, being beaten on goal difference, and you think back at games where we beat Gateshead 3-2, and we thought Macclesfield had beaten them 4-3, but it was 4-4. And you think at games maybe where we, as a striker, for instance, maybe if I'd have scored another 2 or 3 goals, or would have conceded less. You think of all of those scenarios, but the bottom line is he just basically said, there's nothing you can do about it. It's done. It's finished. you may as well forget it, but make sure when you come back the following season, we don't leave anything like that again. We just make sure that we get the job done, and that's what we did.
Job was done pretty much by the end of March, early April, wasn't it? And Paul Lewis, Chairboys on the Net, has put some great stuff up on Twitter today. We were speaking on May the 1st, which is the anniversary of Wycombe lifting that trophy, although they'd won the league many, many weeks before then. A youthful Keith Scott, Glyn Creaser on the steps at Adams Park, the crowd on the pitch. I mean, wonderful scenes. The sun was out. I remember it well. I think I'm on the video somewhere amongst the thousands on the pitch. Do you remember those days, Keith, or put them to bed somewhere?
No. Look, I've always said, and I've said it many a time, from a footballing point of view, I've had no greater pleasure, and I'm talking about my whole career now, I've had no greater pleasure than actually being part of a squad that actually got a team promoted from non-league into the Football League, because everything that happened thereafter is down to that group of players. And I always think that group of players will be held in high regard with the supporters of the football club, because we're the ones who actually gave the club that opportunity to go on and achieve FA Cup semi-finals, League Cup semi-finals, promotions and relegations and all of that. So listen, they are the fondest memories that I have of playing football over the course of my career.
Well, that's wonderful. Talk us through signing, because it was the great man himself, Martin, who signed you. What did that feel like when the phone rang?
The weird thing was, I was on loan at Boston United from Lincoln City, because Alan Clark, the great Alan Clark, who was manager of Lincoln City, didn't think I would be good enough to play in the league. So he farmed me out at Boston United, and I went to play for them. And we were, funnily enough, we was playing Altrincham. Martin had come to watch Paul Cavell play, who at the time, in the conference then, the GM Vauxhall Conference, probably arguably one of the best strikers in non-league football. Anyway, he saw me play, and then he came to watch me play, because in them days as well, even though he was on loan at another club, he still played in the reserves. So I played for Boston on loan, but I still played in the reserves for Lincoln City. And he came to watch me play against Lincoln City, for Lincoln City reserves against Nottingham Forest reserves. Ironically, Stuart Cash was playing for Forest, and then it was after that game that he wanted to take me on loan, and he took me on loan, and he just basically said, "Look, come along for a month. Let's see how it goes. See how you get on with the players. See how the players get on with you, and we'll take it from there." And obviously, I had the month there, and at the end of the month, he told me that he wanted to sign me, and they paid £30,000 for me.
For some of our younger listeners, they won't be aware of what sort of striker you were. Big, bustling target man, eye for goal. Dave Carroll on the right wing, Steve Guppy on the left wing. I mean, for a striker, that's not a bad combination, is it?
No, it's not. And bear in mind, we had Ty Gooden and Simon Hutchinson on the bench. So, from a striking perspective, I had probably, four very, very good wingers, different wingers. Obviously Steve Guppy went on and had a great career and played for England. But it was brilliant, But with Gups, the beautiful thing about Gups was I knew once, when Gups was, for those who watched him play in Europe, when he faced up a defender, if he dropped his shoulder to come inside and then he'd shift it outside, as soon as he shifted it, I knew it was coming in. So I could make my run. And then depending on where he was, whether he was on the touchline or in halfway between touchline and 18-yard box or on the edge of the 18-yard box, I knew whether it was going far post, middle of the goal or near post. So I could make my run. Dave Carroll on the other side, couldn't read him left, right and centre. Brilliant player, by the way, but what Dave would do, Dave would go to cross and you'd make a run and then he'd cut back inside. So you'd stop, make your run again, and he'd cut back inside again. So Dave was more difficult to read, but having said that, having those two players on either wing was, from a striker's perspective, was a godsend.
End of that first season, finished at Wembley, the FA Trophy final. Talking about crossing, it's not a bad Keith Scott cross for Mark West, which is still one of my favourite Wycombe goals, a diving header, but that was some cross as well, Scotty. Yeah, it was, and funnily enough, when I was talking about it many moons ago, and Glyn Creaser was in the conversation, and Glyn Creaser, actually, somebody was saying to me about the same thing, Scotty, it was a great cross and all that, and it was a great sort of, header by Westy.
And Glyn Crease had just said, Scotty, just remember one thing, it was me who put you down the line. So without it, you wouldn't have been able to have done it. But look, it's the old additive, isn't it? You know, sometimes strikers make the best crossers because they know what type of balls other strikers want. And from my point of view, you know, like I say, Crease knocked it down the line. It was just a matter of you know, getting it out of my feet. I got it out of my feet, got my head up, and I knew Westy was going to make the run. So it was more about just putting it into an area, and you know, a lot of the great wingers, they put balls into areas, and you know, young kids who play the game, sometimes it's not about picking out the player, it's about putting it in an area where you know he's going to run. And all I was concentrating on was putting it in that area, because I knew if I put it in the area, Westy would do everything in his power to get there, and of course he did. Diving header, brilliant goal, and a fitting end and a fitting tribute to Mark West, who was a fantastic striker, by the way, fantastic striker.
And then the following 2 seasons later, back at Wembley once more, having already won the league. And then Wycombe into the Football League. You started off in the Football League, and then, you know, you earned yourself what can only be seen as a dream move into what was then the Premiership, Scott. I mean, that was a big step, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a huge step. And, you know, I remember sort of, it might have been a week or two before we played Bristol Rovers. Before I left, we played Bristol Rovers in the FA Cup at Twerton Park. And as I was coming off the coach, some guy pulled me and said, "Are you Keith Scott?" I went, "Yes, I am." He said, "Look, I'm a scout from a Premier League club who are interested in signing you." And I didn't think anything of it. Anyway, we played the game, obviously, and then I was at home, and I got a phone call from Martin O'Neill. He said, "Scotty, get yourself down the ground now." And of course, when he never rang you unless you was either in trouble or he had something to tell you. Well, I didn't think he had anything to tell me, so I thought I must have been in trouble. So I went down the ground, and he said, "Look, we've had an offer come in for you from Swindon. You know, obviously Premier League. The club have accepted the offer, but what they've also said, if you don't want to go, they'll reject the offer. It's up to you. If you want to stay, we'll give you a new deal, and we'll try and give you the best deal we possibly can." He said, "But before you make any decisions, just think about this." He said, "If you sign for Swindon, you can be playing in front of 20, 30, 40,000 people. If you stay here, you could be playing in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people." He said, "It's up to you." And of course, I said to him, which he knew anyway, that I wanted to talk to Swindon, and I did. I went to meet John Gorman, and we agreed terms, and it all happened that quickly. I think it might have been a Monday or a Tuesday that the gaffer called me into his office. I think by Thursday, I'd signed and I was training for Swindon, and then I made my debut on the Saturday against Ipswich at home.
And you chilled on Sunday. That's a hell of a week, isn't it?
Chilled on Sunday, yeah, and then sort of pinched myself a few times, and just sort of, I suppose, realised how fortunate I was, and obviously, you know, to fulfil, I suppose, the opportunity of playing in the Premier League.
He scored on your debut, didn't he?
I did, yeah. It was a header. We was 1-0 down. Martin Ling put the cross in and headed it in, made it 1-1, and we drew 2-2. John Walk, the great John Walk, was marking me. So yeah, 2-2 we drew.
I spoke to Steve Guppy on this podcast a few months back, and he said that Martin O'Neill didn't speak to him for over a year when he left Wycombe Wanderers. Did you get the same treatment, or was it a bit more amicable?
No, I was fine, because Gups had an agent, didn't he? And I think it was when he went to Newcastle, wasn't it? I think Newcastle bought him for 150 grand, and I think the gaffer felt that the agent had been a little bit underhanded, and he hadn't handled it very well. And as you know, speaking to the gaffer, he's not a lover of agents, and I think it was that. You know, I don't think it was anything personal regarding Gups. I think it was the agent side of it. I mean, yeah, they never spoke for a year, but no, regarding me, I never had an agent. Never had an agent in my career. I always let the PFA do my deals. Because the weird thing was, this, going back to this guy who said he was a scout, he then rang me up after I'd signed for Swindon. He turned out he was an agent, and he wanted to be my agent. But you know, we're going back, obviously, you know, 27 years. But you see what you did was the player paid, the agents took a percentage of the player's deal. whereas now clubs pay the agents, don't they, the agent fees. So he effectively wanted to take a percentage of my deal with Swindon, because obviously for him sorting the deal out. And I actually had the conversation. I said, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. You can be my agent. I won't give you anything of whatever I make on any move that I do. But ultimately, if you get me any commercial deals, you can take 20% of that. And he said, no. I said, in that case, I'm not interested. So I never had an agent. I had all my deals done through the PFA, or I did them myself.
You were up in the Premiership. Wycombe Wanderers obviously had their first season in the Football League. When you left, did you think that group could go on and achieve promotion like they did?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. If you actually look at the team, there were good players. Good players who had good careers. Obviously, we know Steve Guppy moved on, but you look at the midfield. You had Keith Ryan, you had Steve Thompson. And I go on, I mention, every time I think of them two, I always mention this. People talk now about box-to-box midfielders. Well, them two were box-to-box midfielders 20-odd years ago. They had the ability to get forward, score goals, but would always do their work going backwards. And then, of course, you had Jason. Obviously, you had Gups, you had Davy Carroll. Heidi was in goal. We had a good side, so it was no surprise to me. Obviously, Super Simon Garner then came on board. It was no surprise to me that they went on and achieved promotion. Not at all.
And then for you, Scotty, you ended up back at Wycombe after a few other clubs as well, and then was sold again. So you scored some goals and made the club a bit of money over the years. Yeah,
I did. The reason why I came back was because it was purely and simply the birth of my youngest boy, who's now 20. When my eldest was born, I was at Norwich and I was at Stoke, so I was away a lot. And I actually got offered, funnily enough, at Norwich. They offered me Mike Walker, who was a fantastic guy. He offered me another year's contract at Norwich. Initially, he was going to release me, but then he offered me another year. But I decided not to take it. I wanted 2, but they only offered me 1. And also, as well, like I say, my wife was pregnant with my youngest boy, and I just felt that I'd been away a lot, during my football career. So I had that offer on the table. I had a 3-year deal offered from Chesterfield as well, which was better than the deal that was offered to me at Wycombe. But I just made the conscious decision it was the right time to come back from a family perspective. And also as well, I think at the time I might have been 30 maybe at the time. And of course I was thinking about, the next step, about possibly staying in football with coaching, etc. And I just thought it would be a great idea to sort of finish my career at Wycombe and then obviously hopefully see what leads on from there. But it wasn't to be, because obviously I then went to Reading for I think 250,000.
You talk about managerial stuff as well. You did your badges and you moved into non-league as a manager, but non-league managerial world is pretty tough, and this is going back a few years now as well, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. And you look at you was talking about there where you've actually interviewed Hazy, and he wants to get involved in management. My words of warning would be very careful which club you pick. I did all my coaching badges, got my A licence. I started off at Leighton Town, which was very good because I had a chairman there who was a great chairman, and he basically told me, I don't know how many years I'm going back, maybe 10 years, maybe a little bit longer. And he actually said to me, your budget is £750 a week. And they were bottom of the league. And he said, and the way it works is the substitutes, if you're on the subs bench, you only get half of the wages. And I went, okay. I said, what about the manager and his coachings? What's the budget for that? He said, it's in your £750. I said, okay, so what are they currently on? So effectively, I had a £750 wage bill that I didn't touch. In terms of the manager's wages was whatever it was, which was about £30 a week, I think. And then, of course, you had your staff. So that was, but he was a good chairman. Everything he said to me, he did. He never cut the wages, never did anything, and he was very good. So that was good there. But the reason why I left that, I then went to Windsor and Eton, was because we got to the 4th qualifying round of the FA Cup, and we were lying. This was the following season. We were lying about 4th or 5th in the league on a £750 budget, and I wanted to bring back a guy who'd gone to Windsor, who lived in Leighton, a guy called Michael Chennels. and he wanted to come back, but he was on a contract. So I said, and the club had made about £16,000 in the FA Cup run. I said, look, I can get you promoted. I need Michael Chennels. It's going to cost £2,000 to get him. I said, and then he'll fit within the wage bill. I've already spoke to him, and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. I said, but you've just made your £16,000. No, he wouldn't do it. And from that day on, I just made a conscious decision that I couldn't progress any further. And then, ironically enough, I went to Windsor and Eton, who Michael Chennels was at. In the 2.5 years I was there, the first year we finished 8th. The second year we finished runners-up, and we won the Berks and Bucks Cup. And then the following year we won the championship. And then the chairman sacked me. And that was it.
How come? I mean, that's not a bad record.
Well, he sacked. I later found out, look, the club got wound up through not paying tax, and then it transpired that it owed probably about £200,000-300,000 in debt. Obviously, the manager and the players were to blame for having such an extortionate wage bill, which, to be fair, at the time, I'll be honest with you, was £2,500 a week, which, when I took over the club, it was £3,500, and I reduced it by £1,000. And also, what people aren't aware of is Jim Melvin, who you know was my number 2. We was on contracts, and for 5 months from December till the end of the season, we never got paid because the chairman said he didn't have all the wages, so we relinquished our money. The physio never got paid, and the last 2 months of the season, the players were only paid half of their money, but they were told by the chairman that they would get it at the end of the season, which they never did. So I had a very, very good group of players, and when all of this was going on, I dragged all the players into the boardroom at the club, and I said, look, here's the situation. And we had a couple of senior pros and the club captain and the vice captain. They said, look, Scotty, be honest with you, do you think he'll pay the wages at the end of the season if we're going to defer it? I said, I don't know is the honest answer. I said, Jim and I aren't being paid. We're not being paid at all. We haven't been paid since December. I said, but all as I'm interested in is winning the league. I said, and we can win it. I said, but I appreciate with some of you the money is paramount to your everyday life. I said, so here's the situation. You make a decision. Jim and I will walk out the room. You make a decision. Well, if you choose to carry on and play, we don't mention money again, and we go on and we win the league. I said, if you decide that you want to leave because you're not happy with the situation, I'll back you 100%. I said, but whatever decision you make, we make the decision and that's it, it's final. So Jim and I went out of the room. We came back in 20 minutes later and said, we've decided we're going to continue and play the season and hopefully he'll pay. I said, right, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. We don't mention money again. And credit to the players, they never did. And they went on and won the league. And what really frustrated me about all of it, listen, sacking me didn't bother me, really. What bothered me was the fact that, it then transpired in the papers that it was my fault because I was too demanding, I wanted more money for the players, etc., and the players should have played for nothing, blah, blah, blah. And the players have got a little bit of a raw deal out of it, and to be honest with you, it tainted me, I think, in terms of non-league football. So I would always say to any ex-pro going into non-league football, do your homework on the club first, do your homework on the chairman, because in non-league football there are too many bad chairmen.
A crying shame, really, because I'm sure your story is not the single story like that. I'm sure that's happened many, many times to many other managers and players as well. Would you think it'd be different now, Scotty, if you were hanging your boots up now and you're thinking maybe I can go into academies, there'd be more opportunities perhaps if you wanted to go in with your badges? Yeah, what I would do now, if I was hanging my boots up now, I wouldn't touch non-league football. I'd go into an academy because the academy system is very, very good. If you want to progress as a coach into management. And I think the structure is there now for players who finish at 35 or whatever, maybe 36, 37 or even younger. I think if you've got your badges, the structure is there for you to go in, certainly at Premier League level, at under 12s, under 14s, under 16s, make your way up, maybe, under 21s, under 23s, etc. So if I had my time again, I would certainly do that. I suppose, going off the beaten track, my only reservation with the academy system as it stands now, if you look at League One and League Two clubs,
a lot of those clubs don't have the revenue to have any category system 3 or 4. And I just think if you look at the way the EPP is set out, it's about producing elite players and homegrown players, but we don't, as a footballing nation, we don't provide total funding to allow, for instance, Wycombe Wanderers to have a Category 3 academy. And what we should be doing, really, we should be providing that revenue for League 1 and League 2 clubs to actually enable them to have that Category 3 or Category 4 academy and not have to worry about it impacting on their overall budgets for the season. Because ultimately, I would argue that most clubs at League 1 and League 2 level would want to have an academy of some sorts, but the bottom line is they can't financially afford it. And we need to look at that. Interesting thing, if I can go off the beaten track here, there's a program on Netflix called The English Game, and it's about going back into the 1870s, where then football in Great Britain was actually for the upper class, and basically Blackburn were the team that came out from working class, and more specifically a footballer called, I can't think of his first name, but his surname was Suter, and it was him and a guy who was from the upper classes who actually came together and changed the way football was played in this country. But in the 1870s, football was an elitist sport, and the way the academy system is set up, if we're not very careful, Leagues 1 and Leagues 2 will become regionalised, and actually it will then become an elitist sport again, and I think it's very important that we stop that from happening. Sorry there, Phil, went off the beaten track.
I'll tell you what, Scott, I knew I was going to roll back the years, but I didn't think we were going to go back as far as 1870. Wow.
Well, there we go.
Well, let's wind that clock all the way back forwards and bring it up to the present day. Wanderers, what a season they've had up to now. We don't know what's going to happen, but what a season they've had. Yeah, listen, it's been fantastic. I think, if you look at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't say survival was the only option. I think they were more than capable of surviving. I suppose it was probably mid-table, but they've had a fantastic season thus far. And like we're saying, until we know what's going to happen, in regards to the leagues, we don't know where they may or may not end up. But regardless of that, it's been a fantastic season. It really has. Let me ask you a hypothetical question, Scotty, because there's loads of rumours and leaked audio and information and theories from TV companies and other people and other chairmen who've got vested interest. One of the things that has come out this week is the potential of the season being finished and then a points per game table being made, and then the top 3 going up from each division, which would mean Wycombe would get promoted to the Championship. If you're a player, if you're a striker of a team who finished third and went up points per game, how would you feel about that? My view on the way the league is at the moment is, can you finish the Premier League all the way down to League 2? Can you finish them safely in the time period you've got before players can have a bit of a break and go into the new season? I'm not convinced you can, if I'm being brutally honest. So therefore, it then becomes, do we stop the league and do it on a points per game ratio? In which case, if they do, Wycombe go up, which is brilliant for Wycombe. But for me, the season is based on obviously how you do over the course of a season. And if they're going to not finish the leagues now, my personal view is, and it's going to upset people either way, and some people, is actually wherever you are now, if the league ends tomorrow, that's really where you finished. And the way they should do it is possibly, right, we're not having playoffs this year. They did it before, and ironically, Wycombe missed out on that when they actually made the leagues bigger at the lower levels. In League 1, it was only the top team who went on, and the next 4 in the playoffs, and Wycombe finished 6th. I think if they're going to finish the leagues, they should finish them, and wherever you sit now is actually where you have finished the season. But get rid of the playoffs, and then obviously, which means then effectively in League 1 only 2 go up, but equally only 3 go down, not 4, and the same for the Premier League, the Championship,
and then obviously in terms of League Two, only one goes down, one up, and then obviously three go up. That doesn't work well for Wycombe because it means they don't get promoted, but I just think that's the fairest way of doing it, in my opinion.
I like to play the long game, Scotty, you see, because I remember that 94-95 season when Wycombe finished sixth. Martin O'Neill was the manager, so therefore they would have got into the playoffs, which would have meant that they would have won it, because that's just what happened back then. So they would have been into the first division, aka the Championship. 25 years later, I'm all about these decisions. They even themselves up over time. That's what they say, isn't it? If Wycombe were to go up by points per game, isn't that just the evening up of that decision over time?
Yeah, it is absolutely 100%. and see, this is the thing, though, Phil, isn't it? It's I think they finished the obviously the French league now, and I think they've done it on a points per games ratio there, haven't they? And obviously PSG won the title. But it's one of those. If you do it on a points per games ratio, obviously Wycombe finished third, so okay, they go up. But then the team that are currently in third, they'll say, well, hold on, that's not fair, because actually over the course of the season we're above them on merit and things and what have you, and that's how it could be construed if that was the case of the league. So I think unfortunately the EFL and the Premier League have decisions to make regarding the leagues, which whatever decision they make, they're not going to please everybody. So obviously that's my opinion. I'm not saying it's the right one. I fully understand what you're saying, and obviously all the Wycombe fans will say the same, and I respect that, and it would be great for the football club. Just financially, it would be fantastic, and to actually see them in the Championship would be brilliant. But it's one of those decisions that whatever's made, you're not going to please everybody. You're always going to upset somebody. So it's a decision that obviously I'm glad I don't have to make, and I don't envy the people who are making it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, and absolutely echo those sentiments. Whatever happens, someone's going to be really upset somewhere, and other people might be very, very happy. We shall be watching it very, very closely. Scotty, let's finish on the football then. Many, many goals for Wycombe Wanderers. You must have a favourite out of all of those. Can you talk us through one?
Gosh, favourites out of all of them. I'll tell you, one of my favourites was, we played Bath City at home, and it was a year we finished runners-up, I think, and it was a bank holiday Monday. And we beat them 1-0, and it was a volley from the edge of the box. And the reason why I suppose it's one of my favourites is because it was one of those games where it was a frustrating game, and I was getting more and more wound up with the fact that I wasn't getting chances, or if I got them, I might have missed them. And it was frustrating because Bath City, whenever we played Bath City in the conference, it was always a tough game. They had a centre-half called something Essex who was just so mouthy and always chomped in your ear for the whole of the game and what have you. And anyway, so I get really, really frustrated. Anyway, I think it was a corner. It's come out to the edge of the box, and on the edge of the box, and I volleyed it. It's gone straight in. And Glyn Creaser came up to me, and when he came up to me, all he said to me was, "I told you, don't get frustrated. Just be patient, and it will happen." And I just thought, yeah, brilliant. So that was probably one of my favourite goals, because with the greatest respect as well, I didn't score many volleys. They normally went in the stanchion of the crowd, not the goal. And so I suppose that was arguably one of my favourites, but we never won the league anyway. So, but yeah, I suppose that was one of my favourites, I think.
Right, that's your lot for this episode. If you're still desperate for a football fix, then the Ringing the Blues lockdown quiz is back this Saturday at 8 p.m, internet permitting. I'll post a YouTube link later this week. Big thanks to Scotty, Andy Collins, Gareth Ainsworth, Russell Martin, Craig Anderson, George Williams and Roberto Perroni. Take care and stay safe.